There's a moment, and most men don't even see it happening, when a woman quietly downgrades you in her mind. One day you're the guy she's excited to hear from, the next you're just there, background noise. And the worst part, you probably did something you thought was showing her you cared. Not something cruel, not something obviously wrong, something that felt like the right move at the time. And in that moment, something shifted, something in how she saw you changed permanently, not because of what you did on the surface, but because of what it revealed underneath. Most men never figure out what triggers this. They keep repeating the same patterns, wondering why things always seem to fade, but there are men who never end up in that position. Men who keep a woman's respect without even trying. And it's not because they're better looking or richer or more naturally confident. It comes down to 7 habits, 7 daily patterns that signal something to women on a level most guys don't even know exists. And habit number 7, it's the one that makes the other 6 actually work. Miss that one and nothing else sticks. Let me walk you through each one. Now, before I break these down, I want to be clear about something. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about pretending to be someone you're not or playing games to trick her into liking you. That never works long term. And honestly, it's exhausting. What I'm talking about is something different. These 7 habits aren't masks you put on. They're shifts in how you operate. Shifts that come from understanding what genuine value actually looks like to women. See, most dating advice tells you what to say or what to do in the moment. Text this. Wait that long, say these words. But that's surface level. And women can sense when you're performing. When your behavior doesn't match your internal reality, there's always a disconnect. Something feels off to her, even if she can't name it. The men who naturally attract respect, they're not running a playbook. They've just internalized habits that make their value obvious without them having to prove anything. And that's what I want to show you. Not tricks, not scripts, just the daily operating system that separates men women chase from men women overlook. So let's talk about why most approaches fail, and then I'll walk you through each habit one by one. Here's the core problem most men face. They think value is something you demonstrate, something you prove. So they try to show her they're worth her time by doing things, texting consistently, making plans, being available, complimenting her, showing interest. And on paper, that sounds reasonable. If you like someone, you show them, right? But here's where it falls apart. When you're constantly demonstrating value, you're operating from a position of deficit. You're essentially saying, I need you to see my worth, which means you don't believe your worth is self-evident, which means you probably don't have as much of it as you think. Women pick up on this instantly, not consciously, but something in her brain registers. This man is trying to earn my approval, and the moment that registers, your value drops. Think about it from her perspective. The men she's most attracted to, the ones she actually chases, they're not proving anything. They're not trying to convince her. They just exist in their own frame. They have their own life, their own priorities, their own sense of worth that doesn't depend on her validation. That's the gap. Most men are playing a convincing game when they should be playing a qualifying game. So here are the 7 habits that flip that dynamic completely. The first 3 habits are foundational. They're about how you manage your time, your emotions, and your life outside of her. Habits 4 and 5 go deeper. They're about how you respond when things get tense, when she tests you, when she pulls back, when the dynamic shifts. And habits 6 and 7, those are the ones most men never figure out. They're about standards and self-priority. And honestly, habit 7 is the one that ties everything together. Without it, the other 6 won't stick. Let's start with the foundation. Habit number 1, controlled availability. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The more available you are, the less valuable you seem. Not because availability is bad, but because unlimited availability signals that you have nothing else going on. Think about anyone you respect, in any area of life, your boss, a mentor, someone you admire. Are they available 24/7? Do they respond to every message within seconds? Do they drop everything the moment you reach out? No, because people with full lives have constraints. They have priorities, and their time is genuinely limited. When you respond to her text within 30 seconds every single time, when you're always free whenever she wants to hang out, when your schedule magically clears every time she becomes available, you're communicating something. You're communicating that she's your top priority before she's earned that position. And here's what happens in her mind. If he's this available, he must not have options. If he doesn't have options, other women don't want him. If other women don't want him, maybe I shouldn't either. She's not thinking this consciously, but her instincts are running that calculation in the background. Controlled availability isn't about playing games, it's about genuinely having a life, having commitments, having priorities that exist outside of her. The practical application is simple. Don't respond instantly every time. Have plans you won't cancel. Be willing to say, I can't that day, without offering 5 alternatives. But here's the thing, and this leads directly into habit number 2. Availability only matters if your internal state matches. Habit number 2. Outcome independence. You can control your schedule all you want. You can wait hours to text back. You can fill your calendar with activities. But if you're still internally obsessing over whether she'll respond, if your mood depends on how she treats you, if you're just waiting for her attention while pretending to be busy, she'll feel it. Women are incredibly perceptive. They can sense when your emotional state is tied to their approval, and nothing kills attraction faster than that kind of neediness. Outcome independence means genuinely not needing a specific outcome from her, not pretending, not faking, actually being okay whether this works out or not. And I know that sounds impossible when you really like someone, but here's the reframe that makes it real. Instead of hoping she likes you, start asking whether she qualifies for you. Does she show up consistently? Does she respect your time? Does she add to your life? Is she someone worth your investment? When your frame shifts from please like me to let me see if you're worth it, everything changes. Your energy changes, your conversations change, the dynamic changes. You stop performing for approval, you start evaluating from a position of choice. And here's the key, this isn't arrogance, it's self-respect. You're not better than her, you're just equally valuable, and your attention is worth something too. Outcome independence creates space, space for her to chase, space for attraction to breathe, space for the relationship to develop without pressure. But independence means nothing if you don't have something you're independent for. Which brings us to habit 3. Habit number 3, purposeful living. This is where high-value men fundamentally differ from everyone else. They have a direction, a mission, something they're building toward that exists completely outside of any relationship. And I'm not talking about vague ambition, I mean concrete purpose, a business they're building, a skill they're developing, a goal they're pursuing with genuine intensity. Here's why this matters so much to women. When a man has purpose, he has context. His life makes sense. He's not floating around looking for something to fill the void. He's already full, and a woman in his life becomes an addition, not a completion. Men without purpose make relationships their purpose. They pour all their energy, attention, and emotional investment into her because they have nowhere else to put it. And that kind of pressure suffocates attraction. But when you're genuinely locked into something meaningful, you naturally become less available. You naturally care less about any single outcome. You naturally develop the emotional stability that comes from having something bigger than dating to focus on. Purpose is the foundation that makes habits 1 and 2 real instead of performed. The practical application isn't complicated. Have something you're actively working toward, something that excites you, something that would continue even if she disappeared tomorrow. If your entire life would fall apart without her in it, she has too much power, and she'll sense that. Purpose rebalances the equation. You're starting to see the pattern now. These habits aren't separate tricks, they interconnect. They build on each other. And habit 4 is where things get tested. Habit number 4, emotional groundedness. This is where most men completely fall apart. Because everything can look right on the surface. You have a life, you have purpose, you're not too available. But the moment she does something unexpected, you lose your composure. She goes quiet for 2 days. She cancels plans last minute. She says something that feels cold. She seems distant. And suddenly all that internal stability vanishes. You spiral. You overthink. You send the double text. You ask, is everything okay? You try to fix something that might not even be broken. That reaction, that's what kills it. Because here's what you need to understand. Women test men, not maliciously, not consciously, but they do. They create small moments of tension to see how you respond, how you handle pressure, whether your frame holds or collapses under stress. And when you react emotionally, when you panic, when you chase, when you need reassurance, You fail the test. You show her that your stability depends on her, that your peace depends on her behavior, that you're not actually as solid as you appeared. Emotional groundedness means staying calm when she creates distance. It means not taking the bait when she's testing. It means responding instead of reacting. The pause is everything. When something happens that triggers you, don't respond immediately. Let it breathe. Give yourself space to choose your response rather than just reacting from anxiety. High-value men aren't unemotional. They just don't let someone else's behavior control their emotional state. And this stability is what habit 5 builds on. TUF, habit number 5. Selective investment. Here's a mistake almost every man makes early on. He invests way more than she does. She sends a short text. He sends a paragraph. She takes 6 hours to respond. He responds in 6 minutes. She shows casual interest. He shows intense commitment. And he thinks this generosity will be rewarded. He thinks showing her he's all in will make her feel special and want to reciprocate. But that's not how it works. Investment should be proportional. Match her energy, mirror her effort. If she's giving you 40%, give her 40%, not 90% hoping she'll catch up. When you overinvest, you create an imbalance. You put yourself in a weaker position. You communicate that her attention is more valuable than yours, which, remember from the hook, is exactly what triggers the downgrade. Selective investment means being willing to pull back when she pulls back, not as punishment, not as a game, just as a natural response to what you're getting. If she's not showing up, you don't chase harder, you invest elsewhere. You redirect that energy toward your purpose, your life, your other options. This is directly connected to what we talked about with controlled availability. If you genuinely have other things in your life, pulling back isn't a strategy, it's natural. You're not withholding as a tactic. You're just not pouring water into a cup that isn't receiving it. The decision framework is simple. Ask yourself, is her investment level earning this response from me? If not, adjust. We're past the halfway point now, and habits 6 and 7 are where most men never get to. They're the advanced ones. Let's keep going. Habit number 6. Boundary enforcement. Most men don't have boundaries with women they're attracted to, or if they do, they don't enforce them. She cancels last minute? No big deal, he adjusts. She's dismissive or disrespectful? He lets it slide. She takes him for granted? He accepts it because he doesn't want to rock the boat. And he calls this being easygoing or not sweating the small stuff, but she reads it differently. She reads it as, he doesn't think he deserves better. Boundaries are standards you refuse to compromise on. They're the lines that define what you will and won't accept. And enforcing them, calmly, without drama, is one of the most attractive things a man can do. Here's why. When you have boundaries, you're communicating something powerful. You're saying, I value myself, my time matters, my respect matters, and I'm not so desperate for your attention that I'll accept treatment that falls below my standard. That's attractive. That's high-value signaling without saying a word. The practical application isn't about being harsh or punishing. It's about noticing when something doesn't feel right and addressing it, or walking away. If she consistently flakes, you stop making plans with her. If she's disrespectful, you name it calmly and see how she responds. If she doesn't meet your standards, you're willing to leave, not as a threat, but as a genuine option. The men who struggle most are the ones who would rather have low-quality attention than no attention. Boundaries require being okay with losing her. Which brings us to habit 7, the one that makes all of this work. Habit number 7, self-priority. This is the one most men never learn, and it's the one that ties everything else together. Self-priority means putting yourself first, always. Not in a selfish, narcissistic way, but in a foundational, non-negotiable way. Your well-being, your goals, your peace, your standards, before anyone else's. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds selfish. That sounds like the opposite of what a good partner should do. But here's the truth most people won't tell you. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And you cannot maintain value if you consistently sacrifice yourself for someone else's approval. Men who put women first, who rearrange their lives, abandon their goals, compromise their standards to keep her happy, they don't end up in happy relationships. They end up resented. Or worse, they end up alone because she lost respect for a man who didn't respect himself. Self-priority is the foundation of every other habit we talked about. Why can you control your availability? Because your time is valuable to you first. Why can you stay outcome independent? Because your worth doesn't depend on her. Why do you have purpose? Because you're building something for yourself, not for her. Why can you stay grounded? Because your peace comes from within, not from her behavior. Why can you invest selectively? Because you value your own energy. Why can you enforce boundaries? Because you refuse to accept less than you deserve. Without self-priority, all of these habits become performances, acts you put on hoping they'll work. But with self-priority, they become natural extensions of who you are. And that's the difference between men who attract and men who chase. Main. Now here's the part that might be hard to hear. You can memorize all 7 habits. You can practice them. You can try to implement them perfectly. But if you're doing any of this to get her to like you, it won't work. The men who struggle aren't struggling because they don't know the right tactics. They're struggling because underneath everything, they're still performing for approval, still trying to become high value so she'll choose them, still making her the goal. And women can feel that. They can feel when your self-improvement is actually just another form of chasing, when your boundaries are just leverage to make her value you more, when your purpose is just a strategy to seem more attractive. That's not high value. That's manipulation wearing a better costume. The controversial truth is this: you're not unattractive because you're doing the wrong things. You're unattractive because you're doing things to get a specific response from her. Real value isn't performed, it's lived. High-value men don't build habits to attract women. They build habits because that's who they are. The attraction is a side effect, not the goal. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. If she never came back, if she never texted, if this never worked out, would you still want to be this version of yourself? If the answer is no, if you drop these habits the moment you got her, then you haven't actually changed. You've just found a more sophisticated way to chase. But if the answer is yes, if these habits are worth having regardless of her, then you're on the right path, and the results will follow. So let me ask you, which of these 7 habits hit hardest for you? Which one did you realize you've been getting wrong? Or maybe there's one you're already doing well. I'd love to hear that too. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and when I see patterns, when I see the same struggles coming up again and again, that's what shapes the next video. This isn't just content for me, it's a conversation, because here's what I believe. The men watching this, the ones who made it to the end, who are genuinely trying to understand themselves and grow, you're not the problem in dating. The problem is that no one handed you the playbook, no one explained how this actually works. You were left to figure it out alone, usually by making painful mistakes. So that's what this channel is for. Real insights, real psychology, not the surface level just be confident advice that doesn't actually help anyone. If this resonated with you, subscribe. There's more coming. And remember this, you don't need to become someone else. You don't need to pretend. You just need to stop sabotaging the value you already have. Start with one habit, the one that felt most uncomfortable to hear. That's probably the one you need most. Give it a week. See what shifts, because here's what I know for sure. The man who prioritizes himself, who has purpose, who stays grounded, who enforces boundaries, who invests wisely, that man doesn't chase, he attracts, and you're closer to being that man than you think.